Well, did Mary Poppins even come from another country, or was she already local? Okay, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Hey everyone, it's Alexis, mom to two sets of twins. Yes, two sets of twins. And today I'm breaking down why we chose to hire a full-time nanny instead of an au pair. So when my husband and I were preparing for the arrival of our first set of twins, at the time I was still working outside of the house. I mean, I was working from home, but like working at a PR agency, and intended to go back to work after. So we knew that we needed to start to figure out childcare options. And because I'm the kind of person that I am, we started researching our options while I was still pregnant. My husband and I knew that for us, daycare wasn't an option. We just weren't comfortable with having to send the kids out of the house, especially as babies. And so that was just never on our list of things to consider. So then we started researching nanny agencies in our area to kind of help us find the person who would suit our needs best. And when we started doing that research, I also came across a couple of au pair agencies. We kind of started thinking like, oh, maybe an au pair would be the route to go. But after some surprising research, we decided that was not the option for us. So this could be, me being a little green here, but I actually learned that I was actually a little bit confused about what an au pair actually is. Honestly, I thought an au pair was just like an international nanny, just somebody from a different country who came to be your nanny, like a Mary Poppins type of person. I don't know. Well, did Mary Poppins even come from another country, or was she already local? Okay, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. That is what I thought that an au pair was. And I think that that is what a lot of people think that an au pair is. But what an au pair actually is typically a young person. I think the age range is like 18 to 26 is like what they usually say on the agencies, who is seeking a cultural exchange. So almost like, I kind of liken it to like a work study. So they're gonna come to the US for a year or whatever the term of their contract is, and they're going to do some childcare for you, but they're also going to have the opportunity to study and to learn about the American culture, while also hopefully giving your kids some of their culture, which I do think is like a great thing to expose your kids to, like different languages, different cultures, all that stuff. So then when I met with the agency and started talking to them about what we were looking for, and they were telling me about the candidates that they would be putting forward, I realized something. I realized that these people were not professional nannies or professional childcare workers. They were just simply young people who perhaps had done some babysitting, perhaps were interested in childcare or liked kids or whatever, and were going to be using that as a means to also do this cultural exchange, meaning that their experience with providing actual childcare would be somewhat limited, and a lot of it would be learning on the job. Now, one of the agencies we met with did say that all of their candidates had gone through like a certain amount of hours of childcare training. I think that they also learned like, CPR and all of those great things, which is great. But for a first-time mom pregnant with twins, learning that most of these candidates wouldn't have extensive infant experience freaked me out. Because for me, I'm thinking I want somebody who is so sure of what they're doing in this capacity that they could hopefully be teaching me a thing or two. Like they might have already dealt with sleep regressions, or I was really hopeful that we would find somebody who had infant twin experience so they could help with implementing a schedule and all of that stuff. Because although I had experience with babies and infants growing up, babysitting and things like that, I did not have experience with infant twins. And of course, the experience of babysitting is much different than having your own. So I was really thoughtful with the fact that I wanted somebody who was pretty experienced so that it could take one of those worries off of my shoulders. Like I knew that someone would come in and I would have to train them on certain things, like where things are, like what they like, what they don't like, that type of thing. But I didn't want to be thinking that I was like teaching somebody to hold their first baby or something like that. The thing that even sparked me to make this video was that I saw somebody on TikTok talking about how that they were gonna be transitioning from a full-time nanny over to an au pair, and some of the things that they listed as the benefits of it were a little bit curious. So one of the things that they listed that a lot of people in the comments were not happy about was that having an au pair can seem like you're gonna be saving on a lot of costs because the hourly rate typically works out to far less than what you're gonna be expected to pay a nanny in the US. But of course, there are some things to mention here. Number one, there are agency fees. You do have to pay agency fees, assuming you're hiring your au pair through an agency. Of course, there's room and board. And so of course, that's gonna be like extra groceries, and of course, including them when you're going out to eat and things like that can all be additional costs that you aren't seeing as like your out-of-pocket paycheck payments, but it's costs nonetheless. Additionally, at least the agencies that we were working with required additional fees for the au pair. So not only were you paying them like their weekly stipend or whatever they call it, but there was also like an education component, like to pay for them to like take a class or something like that. You had to provide transportation for them for like when they're off, whether it was like giving them, you know, Uber money or access to a car or whatever. So those are also like additional costs that you might not be thinking about. And the other thing that had the comments going wild on this other creator's video was the fact that she was like, well, yeah, we just have such a changing schedule. We really need flexibility, you know, whatever. And one of the benefits of having somebody who does live with you could be a flexible schedule, but it doesn't mean unlimited working hours. Like their hours are to be capped at a certain amount per week. You're really not supposed to be going above and beyond that, and you shouldn't want to. Everybody deserves a break. And especially if these people are here for cultural exchange, then they want to have time to go enjoy the culture, which is something as the potential host family of an au pair, we have to be thinking about. You can't think about it as like, oh, this person's gonna come live with us. They don't know anybody here anyways. Like they're just gonna be around with us all the time helping us. So really at this point, even though we have spoken to a couple of au pair agencies, once we learned that they weren't necessarily gonna have any of this like extensive newborn and infant experience, that was really kind of all we needed to know that this wasn't the right avenue for us for now. Now, if our kids were older, I could definitely see the appeal of having someone and being like, okay, we need your help in the morning, getting everybody off to school, and we need your help in the afternoons, like, or in the evenings, getting to activities or getting, you know, dinner ready, whatever, something like that. I could definitely see the benefit in that. And then the au pair would have their days kind of free to do what they do. So we decided to go the nanny route. And so we worked with some agencies and we started interviewing candidates. And we ended up coming across our first nanny who had extensive twin newborn experience. Like the family that she was with right before us had twin girls, which was funny because our first twins were girls. And what really sealed the deal for me, because by the time that we came across her, I had already had the girls. I was developing a lot of postpartum anxiety, and the thought of having a stranger take care of my kids in any capacity was freaking me out, but I knew that it was a necessity. When we gathered her references, last family that had the twins ended up being a friend of my aunt. So my aunt was able to call her and be like, hey, like my niece is gonna call for like a reference, like give her the real deal on your old nanny because she's gonna be hiring her. So when I spoke with her, she actually had a lot of great things to say. There were a few things that she was like, these are some things I would watch out for, especially as a first time mom. And those things ended up being correct, but they weren't any like deal breakers. It was just kind of, she was older and from a, you know, from a different culture, a different country, and so she had some ways about certain things, and as a new mom it can be easy to get pushed around into certain things, and so she was kind of like, watch out for that. But she was really great with our girls while they were infants. She's not our nanny anymore, but that's a story for another day. And so having somebody that we knew was experienced with juggling 2 infants and all of that really helped kind of ease some of my anxiety around hiring somebody. My husband and I both work from home, so I knew that we would be there to like oversee how things were going. And so ultimately we did decide to go the nanny route. We had her start part-time at first so that like the babies could get used to her, so that I could get used to her and kind of prepare myself for that handoff. And it, you know, worked out really well for us. And we still have a full-time nanny to this day, just a different nanny. A lot of people asked us then and still ask us now, like why daycare wasn't an option for us, or like why we didn't want to send the kids to daycare or school, or like whatever you want to call it. And that really just comes down to a few reasons. I think number one, just personal preference. Neither of us went to daycare as young babies or even young toddlers. And so it just wasn't really an idea that I was comfortable with. I could not imagine, especially for my babies, to be dropping them off anywhere like that. I know that it works really well for some people. I know some people also just don't have a choice and that's what they have to do. And I mean, it is what it is. And we're grateful that that wasn't a choice we had to make. Both work from home, so we love to be able to check in on our kids throughout the day. Like we can have lunch with them if we want. I could take them for a walk, you know, popping in, or even if someone's just having a hard day or somebody is sick or something like that, to be there to be those extra hands and to take over as needed. It just really meant that we didn't have to miss a lot. You know, we got to really be there all the time. It's just that we have someone else there to make sure that we're able to like get our work done and things like that. Plus our babies were preemies, so thinking about illnesses and ratios and like the bad habits of other kids, and you know, you hear all these horror stories, all of those things. I was like, my mind is not gonna be able to do it. And so for us, it really was just worth the peace of mind to do one-on-one, or in our case, one-on-two, whatever you wanna call it, care, especially for like these early days. At the end of the day, every family is different. Everyone's needs are different. So I don't really think that there is really a right or wrong choice for no childcare, for daycare, for au pair care, for nanny care, whatever the care, grandparent care, like if you're so lucky to be able to have full-time grandparent care. I'm looking at you, Athena. No, just kidding. You know, I think that that's all just a personal choice and personal preference. If you're in the middle of figuring out childcare or you have questions about hiring an au pair or a nanny, drop them in the comments. I'm happy to share more about our experience. I'm also thinking about doing a breakdown of like what we were looking for when we were searching for a nanny. So if you're interested in that, let me know.